Well, good morning everyone. It's lovely to be here today. If I were to ask you why you like a particular subject when you were younger as a student, your answer would probably be 9 out of 10 times, I had a wonderful teacher. Someone you liked and someone who inspired you. Although people say that education is the springboard into a successful future, it's the teacher who's the key to an enjoyable and successful educational journey for any student. So once upon a time, 33 years ago, I began my career as a teacher. I fell in love with chemistry and I pursued my doctorate in chemistry because I had wonderful teachers. They were very knowledgeable but didn't have a superior air of knowing. They were unfazed by their own lack of knowledge, and if they didn't have the answer to a question, the response usually was, "Good question, let's go look it up, or I'll come back and tell you tomorrow." Right? So I also remember another incident in my childhood when I was in grade 6. I was a rather shy child, and one day in class I put up my hand tentatively and asked the teacher a question. There were sniggers in class, and one of the students said in a rather loud voice, "Dumb question." I was embarrassed, the class laughed, and I decided that I was never going to ask any questions anymore in class. My teacher, who was writing something down on the board, turned around, faced the class, and in a very calm voice said, "There are no dumb questions." That has always stayed with me all my life, and it shaped my child-centered philosophy as a teacher. Teachers strive to create emotionally secure environments for students to learn. They create safe spaces for students to explore and learn. And it is these students who've had an emotionally secure environment to learn that are future ready to take on the challenges and navigate the challenges of their adult life. All teachers basically spend enormous amounts of time focusing on connections, right? So the reality is this: they are tuned in to their students' needs, interests, dreams, and talents. They know which student can be relied upon to finish a job on time. They know which student can resolve conflicts amongst peers. They know who can help the new child settle down, right? And this is the kind of information that teachers and principals carry within them. And the reality is sometimes they are aware of their students' personalities and personality traits, likes and dislikes, far better than the primary caregivers. This is the reality of teachers and principals. I remember another anecdote from my life when I was a young teacher and I was teaching grade 11 chemistry. And I remember I had a student in class who was, he had tremendous potential. I didn't doubt that at all. But he was rather surly, wouldn't hand in assignments on time, was often late in submissions, and I was very concerned because his grades were dropping. And as a young teacher, I wondered how to connect with him, and this was my biggest puzzle as a young teacher. So one day, I had put down a puzzle on the board, and it had nothing to do with the knowledge of chemistry at all. All it required was the knowledge of punctuation. And the class was flummoxed, they struggled, but they couldn't answer the question, they couldn't solve the riddle. And this young man from the back of the class comes up with a marker in his hand, goes up to the board and solves the riddle. Much to the amazement and astonishment of all his classmates. He turns around and he's beaming. He's smiling ear to ear, his eyes are shining bright, and he was reveling right, in the respect that he had earned of all of his peers. After that incident, my assignments started coming in slowly on time, and gradually, over the year, his grades improved. So I believe that all teachers need to think about out-of-the-box ways to connect with their students. John Hattie, in his book, Visible Learning for Teachers, says that all teachers who have a positive student-teacher interaction are very likely to secure above average effects on student achievement. Now, instinctive teachers have known this all their lives. Instinctive teachers know that it's rapport first and learning next. And in a class full of children, it's always connection first, cognitive functioning next, right? And that's a very powerful link between connection and learning. Gabor Mate, in his research, reinforces that cognition rests on a foundation of positive emotion. So taking this a little further, we've also learned from noted psychologists like Brené Brown that humans are hardwired for connection because they're social beings. So humans, I repeat that, humans are social beings hardwired for connection. During the pandemic, our students stayed away from school for 2 whole years. They were at home. And when they came back, teachers noticed they had several observations about their students. We had students who wouldn't make eye contact. We had students whose attention span was dropping. Some showed increased aggression and anger, both towards peers and teachers. Self-regulation was lacking. There were a host of mental health issues that included social anxiety, self-harm, screen addiction, that was a very big one, and suicidal tendencies. Right? And this host of issues were right through from 3 to 5 years of age, right up to when the child is 17, 18 years of age. So what did the teaching fraternity do in order to cope and manage this situation? They rose up, right? In the first month, a whole array of activities and tasks were set up just to help students bond and connect with each other. Student voice was encouraged and emphasized in all classes. A host of events were arranged in order to build a sense of belonging, a sense of self, and a sense of group identity. Teachers rallied around to build a sense of community, establishing the link between connection and socio-emotional well-being. So to sum up, society expects teachers to get to know their children extremely well, create safe spaces for children to learn and grow, and of course create connections to promote socio-emotional well-being. One of the joys and challenges of being a teacher is having 30 unique personalities in your classroom that you have to work with. The curious child, the humorous child, the feisty child, the ultra-cooperative child, the angry child, the researcher, the risk-taker, the perfectionist, and the list is endless. And here we are as teachers with all of these students, 30 unique personalities, moving in a variety of different directions. So teachers devise a variety of tasks, activities, and strategies in order to move all of these students towards specific learning goals that are already prescribed in the curriculum. This is what I call leadership in the classroom. So teachers lead the learning of their students by empowering and enabling them to lead their own learning. thus making them not just test ready but future ready, right? And this should be the aim and purpose of every class right through from kindergarten to grade 12. Every child is on a learning continuum. So I believe that all children can learn at their own pace, in their own way. Now John Hattie, in the book Visible Learning for Teachers, says that expert teachers know and believe that all children, I highlight that, can learn. They also believe that intelligence is changeable and not fixed. And my own learning continuum is an example of that. Back in the day when I was in kindergarten, report cards were all handwritten. And if your scores were poor, the marks were written in red. So my report card had a lot of red in it. I was 4 years old, and my teacher would walk around the class waving a ruler in hand. You know, a lot like Harry Potter's teachers waving a wand to make their students learn. But I was scared. I was terrified of my teacher, and as a result, it affected my learning and my performance. But fortunately for me, as I grew, my teacher's belief in me boosted my self-confidence and gradually raised my self-esteem. So I believe that all teachers should have one unwavering belief in their students, that every child has latent potential. And it is this belief, this very belief, and this relentless optimism that supports and helps the late bloomers and the slow learners. So to be a teacher is to be an optimist. You've all heard the old adage that says it takes the village to raise a child, right? It's never been truer, but the members of the village have changed. It's teachers, coaches, counselors, occupational therapists, special educators, referral psychologists, apart from friends and family of the child. That's how much it has changed, and this team needs to endlessly collaborate in order to provide a secure and safe learning space for the children to get educated. So why should this relationship, why is it so important that this relationship should be a positive one? One simple goal: the well-being and successful education of our children. Family structures have changed quite dramatically more recently. This is our reality. Nuclear families, working parents, single parent homes where the primary caregiver is a grandparent, uncle or aunt. So increasingly we observe that family influence on a child is diminishing while the peer influence on a child is increasing. Now, peers have limited exposure and experience and therefore may be a positive influence or a negative influence on a child. Therefore, the only other adults in the life of a child who can support, provide direction or offer guidance are teachers. So it's extremely important that families and teachers are aligned with energies, philosophy, beliefs and values in order to support the education of a child. So in conclusion, my last few thoughts on it. A nation's progress depends on teachers. Governments need and must invest in raising teacher standards. School leadership must invest in teacher education and teacher well-being, not just student well-being, teacher well-being. Why? Because after all, today's children are tomorrow's citizens. Thank you.